Hello everyone. Today I'm going to teach you the chapter 1 from unit 1 of 11th class biology textbook. So this unit 1 is diversity in the living world. Chapter 1 is the living world. So what are the questions that are going to be addressed in this chapter are: what is biology, what is living, and what are the characteristics of a living organism, what is the importance of nomenclature and the universal rules of nomenclature, what is taxonomy and why is it important, and what are taxonomic aids. What is a taxonomic aid? So before starting the chapter, let us learn about the great scientist Ernst Mayr. Ernst Mayr is a great evolutionary scientist, evolutionary biologist, and he is called the Darwin of the 20th century. And he is given the title Alexander Agassiz Professor of Zoology Emeritus. And he is the one who brought into light the important question of evolutionary biology, that is, origin of species diversity. He was awarded 3 prizes. That is the reason he is called the Triple Crown of Biology. What are the 3 prizes? The 3 prizes are the Belsen Prize in 1983, the International Prize for Biology in 1994, the Crafoord Prize in 1999, and he died at the age of 100. Okay, what is biology? Biology is the study of life. Bio means life, logy means study. Study of life is called biology. So where is life found? Life is found everywhere. Life is found even in the cold mountains, in the forests, in the oceans, in the lakes, in the deserts, even in the hot springs. So when anyone asks you to differentiate between living and a non-living thing, what do you do? How do you do it? Like, you have some idea that there are, like, the living things, they show some defining characteristics which make them living, right? So what are those that come to your mind? Growth, reproduction, ability to sense environment and mount suitable response. Some people say environment, okay, anything is fine. Metabolism, ability to self-replicate, self-organize and interact, and emergence. So what is growth? Growth is increase in the mass, fine, but in case of unicellular organisms it is different. Let us talk about that, okay? And reproduction is reproduction is producing the progeny, okay, giving birth to the progeny. Ability to sense environment and mount suitable response. Ability to sense environment in the sense, suppose I'm walking and some lion is lion is coming towards me. It doesn't happen, okay, fine. Lion is running towards me, then I will understand that there is threat to my life and I will try to run away and protect myself, right? That is, I am able to sense the environment and I am able to show suitable response, okay, fine. Metabolism. What is metabolism? I'll be talking about this in the later slides, okay? Ability to sense, ability to self-replicate. Suppose in a multicellular organism, the cells, each cell is able to self-replicate, fine. That is called the ability to self-replicate. Self-organize and interact. See, in a human being, I mean in a living organism, in any living organism, the cells, they make up the tissues make up the the organs together make up the organ system, and finally the organism. That means what is happening even in a cell, the cellular organelles and the chemical, the molecules, the biomolecules present inside the cell, they're interacting with each other. So all these interactions together, this interactions are responsible for the self organization, and this is a defining characteristic of a living organism, okay? And emergence is it is like evolution. Like, living organisms evolve always, they always undergo this evolution, right? That, so is growth a defining characteristic of living organism? See, let us understand. Fine, living organisms grow, trees grow, animals grow, like we grow, we are growing. But even the non-living things like mountain also grows, the sand dunes also grows, but the growth in their case is different. The growth in case of mountains is because of accumulation of some material on its surface. Okay, accumulation of material is responsible for growth in case of mountains, sand dunes, etc. Whereas in case of living beings, the growth is because of a cell division that is taking place inside me, right? So growth in case of living organisms is from inside. So when someone asks you the question, is growth a defining characteristic of living organism, the answer is no. But if they put some conditions like, is growth from inside a defining characteristic of living organism, the answer to this question is yes. Growth from inside is a defining characteristic of a living organism. And when it comes to unicellular organisms like E. coli, yeast, etc., in those organisms, the growth and reproduction are used synonymously. Like suppose you are growing E. coli in a flask. E. coli is growing. That means what it is mean? E. coli is reproducing and many E. coli cells are formed. It is dividing. So in the case of unicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are used synonymously. And when it reproduction, see, different living organisms have adapted to different processes for the reproduction. Like some fungi, they use these ascospores in order to multiply, in order to reproduce. Whereas hydra, it undergoes the process of budding. It uses the process of budding to produce the progeny. Same like yeast also uses the same process, budding. In case of flatworms or the planaria, what it does, it multiplies by using the process of fragmentation. Like what happens is that once this planaria it gets fragmented, each fragment can form the whole planaria again. Okay, that's how it multiplies. Even some algae also uses say similar method of multiplication. Even these use the method of fragmentation. And but see, there are also some living organisms like mule, sterile worker bee, and human, some infertile human couples who are living organisms, but yet they cannot reproduce. Like what is mule? Mule is a hybrid. It is offspring of a male donkey and a female horse. Okay, this is a living organism, but it cannot reproduce. It is sterile. Uh, worker bee. Worker bee, it is a living organism, but it cannot reproduce. There are some infertile human couples who are living beings, but yet cannot. So reproduction cannot be taken as a defining characteristic of living organism, but only living organisms reproduce. Then coming to metabolism. What is metabolism? So we say metabolism is a sum of anabolic and catabolic reactions that take place in your body. Yes, metabolism is a sum of anabolic and catabolic reactions. But what is metabolism? Like you had your meals, okay? After having your meals, you get energy. But how does you get energy? How do you get energy? How do you get energy? It is because of some metabolism that takes place in your body. The respiration, the respiration. Because of respiration, your food is able to get digested, and you get this energy. Your food, like other enzymes and all, they act fine, but finally through respiration you get this energy. So what is this respiration? Respiration is a series of events, series of reactions that takes place in your body. If there is any biomolecule, it is used up using some form of chemical reactions, some form of biological reactions, okay, some form of reactions, and the same biomolecules are again formed using some other pathway, some other reaction. So this sum of all reactions that are taking place in your body in order to keep you alive are known as, this total, the sum is known as metabolism. But you can ask me a question, like people even do perform experiments in labs, in the test tubes, fine, the same reactions which are taking place in your body. Then how do you call like metabolism is defining characteristic of living organism? See, the answer to this question is, though they are performing the reactions in a test tube in a non-living setup, the reactions which are actually taking place in the test tube are the living reactions. So the answer to this question is the reactions are living, though the setup is non-living. So metabolism is the defining characteristic of a living organism. Next, is consciousness a defining property of a living organism? First of all, what is consciousness? As I already explained you, consciousness is the ability to sense the environment and mount a response according to that. So fine, suppose I'm walking on a street. Always I'm walking on a street, I'm walking on a street, I have an umbrella, like I'm walking on a street and suddenly it starts raining. If I have an umbrella, I'll open it. Fine, that is the response to the rain. Fine. And suppose if I don't have an umbrella, I will try to find some shelter where I can prevent myself from drenching in the rain, right? So that is also a form of stimuli, response. I'm showing a response. I'm able to sense the environment that it is raining. So this is called consciousness. And what is self-awareness or self-consciousness? Self-awareness or self-consciousness is nothing but you are aware that you have this property of consciousness. You can, I mean, you are conscious. You are aware that you are conscious. This is known as self-consciousness. All living organisms have the property of consciousness, while the human beings are the only one who have this property of self-consciousness. So yes, consciousness is a defining property of a living organism. Okay, but there are questions which arise, like patients who are brain dead and all. They are, I mean, they are alive by support of some machines. Okay, but they cannot sense the environment. They are not conscious what is going around them. So in this cases, like, how do you say that consciousness is the defining property of living organisms? See, questions like this always arise. But remember, for the examination point of view, yes, consciousness is a defining property of a living organism. And coming to biodiversity, see, life is present everywhere on this earth. Like, I have already said, even it is present in the hot springs. So see, the life which is present in the cold mountains is different from the life that is present in the hot springs. This is different from the life that is present in the desert, and this is different from the life that is present in the forest. So there is large diversity in the life on the earth. So this is called as biodiversity. So there are around 1.7 to 1.8 million species on the earth yet known. Okay, these are known till now, still known. So, and this diversity in the life is called as biodiversity, since bio means life. Next, what is nomenclature and what is need for nomenclature? Nomenclature is nothing but naming. The process of naming is called nomenclature. And here we are going to talk about the nomenclature, which is given to the scientific names which are given to the living organisms. Fine. So why do we need, what is the need to give the scientific names to the organisms? See, there are organisms, like there is a plant which has more than one common name. People from your country, like people from one country might use some name for that specific plant, but I might use some other local name for the same specific plant. And when we want to communicate and when we want to discuss about that plant, you don't understand what is the plant I am talking about, and I don't understand what is the plant that you are talking about. So there is a lot of confusion that arises. So for this, in these cases, there is a need for a common scientific name all over the world, which is followed universally. Okay, that is the reason scientists have brought this system of nomenclature into existence. And Carolus Linnaeus is the one who proposed this binomial nomenclature. And why it is called binomial nomenclature is because the scientific names that are given to these organisms, they have two components. The first component is called genus, while the second component is called specific epithet. Since it has two components, this nomenclature is called as binomial nomenclature. So how do you name a plant? Suppose you have a plant, you have found a plant on the way. How do you name? Because you like some name which very fancy and all, you will give that name. No, it is not like that. The thing is, wherever the origin might be, origin in the sense wherever you might find that for the first time, wherever you might have found that particular organism, the name should be always given in Latin language only. And when you are writing the name, when you are printing the name, you should always print it in italics. Okay. And the thing is, what are the rules and regulations that are to be followed while naming the plant? The thing is, like, you found a plant, you want to name it, you cannot simply name like that. You have to read all the you have to follow all the rules and regulations that are given in books called ICBN and ICZN. ICBN stands for International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, and this is a book which has all the rules, all the set of rules that are to be followed before to name a plant. And similarly for animals, ICZN, International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. And so I said you, it has two components, genus and species, and it is always named in Latin language only, and when it is printed, it should be printed in italics only, and when it is written when it is handwritten, it should be underlined separately. You should not use a single underline for both the words, and genus always starts with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. And for example, here mango is a common name. Okay, so the scientific name for this mango is Mangifera indica. So Mangifera indica. See, Mangifera indica, while I'm printing, if you want to print it, you have to print it in italics. See, this is in italics. If you want to give the details of the author, I mean, details means if you want to also show like who is the one who described it for the first time, you can write the name of the author at the end in abbreviation. When you're writing, you have to write it and underline it separately. You should not use a single underline for both the words. Next, coming to systematics. What is systematics? Systematics is a study of evolutionary relationship among various living organisms. Study of evolutionary relationship among various living organisms. Okay, this is systematics. And where did this word systematics arise? Systema in Latin means systematic arrangement. From this word, the word systematics is arised. Okay, and Carolus Linnaeus, he wrote a book, he published a book, and the name of the book was Systema Naturae, in which he might have described about the systematics and all. Next, coming to taxonomy. What is taxonomy? Taxonomy is classification of living organism based on the characteristics, okay, into different taxa or different ranks or different categories. Okay, what is a taxa? Taxa means rank or a category. You will understand from few moments from now. Okay, suppose you want to explain me that a cat is going. You will say, if you say that a cat is going, I'll understand that. Acha, I will imagine cat. Acha, cat is going. Fine. If you say that an animal is going, it is very unspecific. Like which animal? Animals are so many. There are so many animals. Out of them, which one is going? I don't know. If you say a mammal is going, I understand that acha, an animal which is a mammal is going. But I don't understand, like there are many mammals also. From that, which one is going? I don't understand, right? So if you say that cat is going, then I will understand. So if you see here, all these things, all these three, animal, mammal, and taxa, a cat, these all three are they belong to different taxa. They are different taxa. Okay, I think it is making some sense here. Like taxonomy is done based on different characteristics. Okay, like based on external and internal structure, based on the structure of the cell, the developmental process of the organism, the ecological information of the organism, like how is it related to other organisms in the ecosystem and all those things. And if I want to classify, first what will I do? Suppose I have found a plant on the way, and I want to it is a new plant, maybe I want to name it. First of all, I'll take the plant. I will see First of all, what are the characteristics of the plant, like how are the leaves, how are the roots, and all those things. After that, I will, after characterization, after understanding the characteristics of the plant, that is after the characterization, I will identify it to be like, acha, this belongs to this category, fine, okay, this has characteristics of this, okay, I have identified. And after that, I will classify based on its category characteristics. I will classify into some category, and after classification, I will finally give the nomenclature following the rules of ICBN. So these are the basics. So here you can see all these things: kingdom, phylum or division, class, order, family, genus, species. All these are called taxonomic categories. So what are these taxonomic categories? See, classifying an organism based on the characteristics is called taxonomy, and these are different taxa. Like suppose there is a, like suppose let us talk about Homo sapiens, means human beings, okay. Homo sapiens, we come under the kingdom Animalia, fine, and in the phylum we come under Chordata. See, there are many phylums, like around 6 phylums or so. Like there are, like okay, like based on the characteristics, the different phyla are different phyla are created, and from that, we belong to the class Mammalia, and we belong to the order primate, and we belong to the family Hominidae, and we belong to the genus Homo, and species Sapiens. See, if when it comes to Animalia, like all animals come under Animalia. When it comes to Chordata, there are many chordates. Mammals, there are many mammals. Primates, many primates. Family Hominidae. Like, see, the thing is, the range is decreasing. It is getting narrowed down. Like Homo, when it comes to genus Homo, like it is very specific, and species the most specific one. So this is a hierarchy where each one hierarchy, this is called taxonomic hierarchy, and each one is called taxonomic category, and the lowest one is the species, while the highest one is the kingdom. Sorry, I said you that there are 6 phyla. No, there are more than 6 phyla, like around 10 phyla or so. So yeah, what I was saying, the kingdom is the, like, the, like, if at all, if you take two organisms belonging to the same species, they share many similarities, while the organisms which belong to the same genus but not same species share less similarities compared to the organisms which belong to the same species also. In the same way, organisms which belong to the same family but not from the same genus, they share lesser similarities compared to the organisms which belong to the same genus. Likewise, the order goes, okay. So kingdom, when you say animals, like there are many animals, but when phylum is a phylum, if they belong to Chordata, that means it is a bit narrowing down based on the characteristics. And class, based on further characterization, it is narrowed down into some specific class, and then order, then family, then genus, and finally species. And sometimes you even have the subcategories, okay, like you have subspecies and all, fine. And suppose here is an example of a Panthera leo, means lion, and Panthera tigris, means tiger. So Panthera leo and Panthera tigris, they belong to the same genus, but they don't belong to the same species. See, since they belong to the same genus, they share many similarities. Since they don't belong to the same species, they do have differences, okay. And there are also plants like Solanum nigrum, which is called as black nightshade, and Solanum melongena, which is brinjal, okay. These two, like, so example I'm giving, these two also belong, these two plants, they belong to the same Solanum, but they don't belong to the same species. And human beings, the scientific name of human beings is, the biological name of human beings is Homo sapiens. And here see, this lion, tiger, and leopard, they all belong to the same genus. That is the reason they share many similarities. But since they don't belong to the same species, they do have differences. And the scientific name of lion is Panthera leo. The scientific name of tiger is Panthera tigris. The scientific name of cheetah is the scientific name of leopard is Panthera pardus. Here the cat belongs to the genus Felis. uh, all these animals, but though cat belongs to a different genus, but all these animals, all these four animals, they belong to the same family, which is Felidae. But since cat belong to different genus, it doesn't belongs to Panthera. It shows lesser similarities compared to tiger, which belongs to the same genus as of lion. Okay, but they all belong to the same family. So here cat, it belongs to the family Feridae, and dog, it belongs to the family Canidae. Though they belong to two different families, they belong to the same order, that is Carnivora. Okay, in the same way, plant families Convolvulaceae and Fabaceae, they are put in the same order, Polymoniales. And our related orders, the same way, like how related families are put in the same order, related orders are also put under the same class. Okay, they are put under the same class. For example, order Primata, where monkey, gorilla, gibbon, they come under the order Primata. And the order Carnivora, like tiger, dog, cat, they are all classified into the same class, Mammalia. Okay, so related orders are put under the same class. And here is a table which shows different taxonomic categories of a few organisms. Like see, man, the biological name is Homo sapiens. He belongs to the genus Homo and family Hominidae, order Primata, class Mammalia, and phylum Chordata. In case of plants, you use division, but in case of animals, you use phylum. So in the same way, housefly, mango, and wheat, even the taxonomic categories of these three organisms are also given. You can have a look. Next, what is taxonomic aids? Taxonomic aids are like, they are like preserving techniques or storage techniques, which help us in identification of a particular plant or animal, whatever it is. It helps our work easy. It helps our identification easy. It aids. Okay, it aids us. Aid means help. Okay, so there are different taxonomical aids, like herbariums, botanical gardens, museums, zoological parks, key, flora manuals, monographs, catalogs. So what are herbariums? In your 12th standard or so, you might have prepared these herbariums, right, where you take some plant, you dry it, you pin it on your sheets, and you write its class, order, family, etc. in the bottom or so. These are herbariums. These are like for reference. And what are botanical gardens? In botanical gardens, the plants are grown, the living plants are present, and for every plant, the botanical name, the scientific name and the local name is written, and that's how you can learn, like, acha, fine, this plant is this, and all those things. And a museum is set up for, mostly museums are set up for educational purposes, where the organisms are preserved. Like suppose animals, suppose they want to show like how a tiger looks, what they will do, if there is a dead tiger, they will bring it, they will remove all the mass from inside, and they will stuff it with stuffing material, and yeah, that's how this stuffed animals are present and all those things. Okay, they are for educational purposes, to educate people about things. And zoological parks, everyone knows zoological parks are like where they try to they bring animals, and animals are, as far as possible, they will try to provide the natural habitat, though of course it is not completely natural, because animals, they live in forests, and you want them to stay in a little place. But still, this is for, it is also a type of recreation, and also educational purposes also. Yeah, that is zoological parks. And key is a key, it has leads, like every sentence in a key is a lead. Suppose you have an organism, and you want to know what is the name of the organism. So based on the characteristics, suppose it has certain type of characteristics, you'll see acha whether it has certain type of characteristic or no. If it has, yes, I mean if it has, then that means yes. And if it has that, and you will search for you will have a lead. There are two options in this key, the couplet, they are called couplet, yes or no. Like for a characteristic, if your organism which you have has does it have a particular characteristic, yes. If yes, then go for this. And in that step again you'll see, acha does it have another characteristic like this, no. Acha if no, then you will go for another. So it is like that, that is key. And also you have flora, manuals, monographs, catalogs and all those things. See, these flora, manuals, monographs and catalogs are other means of recording descriptions. And this flora, it contains the actual content of habitat and distribution of plants of a given area. Manuals help in the identification of names of various specific species of organisms in a given area. What is monograph is, monographs has a detailed and well documented information on any particular taxon. So here the picture of zoo, I have already explained. Museum is somewhere like educational purposes, I've already said. And this is a botanical garden. And see here, this is a key where here you have the description of all the plants and all those things. And various like there are famous botanical gardens like Kew in England, Indian Botanical Garden Howrah, National Botanical Research Institute Lucknow. I hope you enjoyed my lecture. Thank you so much. Like, share and subscribe if you like my channel.